is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I am Franco Baranda. It's Friday, the 8th of September, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited the Philippines to talk with President Bongbong Marcos Jr. and declared his support for the Philippines' claim over the West Philippine Sea. As others world leaders gear up for the G20 summit in New Delhi, President Xi Jinping, who reportedly skipped the huge event, recently visited flood-stricken areas in a northern province in China. A biographer revealed that Elon Musk deactivated Ukraine's Starlink access when they attempted to launch a drone attack against Russia due to fears of a possible nuclear war. But did he or did not do it? And what is the reaction on both sides? We'll find out more about that later on. In U.S., New York City Mayor Eric Adams raised concerns over the influx of immigrants coming from all over the world, saying that this could destroy the city. And the United Arab Emirates pledged to buy millions of US dollars worth of carbon credit from Africa in a bid to reduce carbon emissions. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. Hong Kong witnessed its highest hourly rainfall not seen in about 140 years. The record-breaking rain affected day-to-day life due to widespread flooding across the city. Hong Kong has marked its longest black rainstorm warning and put into force the highest level alert on Friday, with much of the city suffering the impact of the heaviest rain in more than a century. The severe weather hit the densely populated city of 7.5 million on Thursday night. As of Friday morning, authorities urged the public to seek safe shelter as the flash floods forced authorities to suspend schools and submerge metro stations, which trapped drivers on roads. The Hong Kong Observatory recorded an hourly rainfall of 158.1 millimeters just before midnight on Thursday, making it the highest on record since 1884. The extreme conditions caught residents by surprise as it happened just days after Hong Kong witnessed its strongest typhoon in 5 years. The record-breaking rainfall was brought by Typhoon Haikui, a tropical cyclone formed over the Pacific Ocean on August 28 before it started moving west toward central Taiwan. The typhoon has killed at least 2 people and displaced thousands of others. Australia and the Philippines elevated their security and economic alliance through the signing of a strategic partnership deal as both countries seek to strengthen collaboration in various fields. Sheena Selim has the details.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's visit to the Philippines resulted in the signing of a strategic partnership with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., which will pave the way for closer cooperation between the two nations. Albanese's visit marks the first time an Australian Prime Minister visited the Philippines in the past 20 years. The strategic partnership deal signed on Friday, September 8, seeks to expand bilateral cooperation in several areas ranging from defense and security, as well as climate change and education. Other initiatives announced during the meeting include the awarding of more than 50 scholarships to Filipinos as a way of encouraging them to study master's and PhD programs in Australia. Both sides also agreed on the re-establishment of a Philippines Institute at the Australian National University and a reciprocal work and holiday visa arrangement for Australians and Filipinos to help young people learn about each country's cultures through tourism. Australia also pledged to contribute $64.5 million as a part of a 5-year program to support peace-building efforts in Mindanao.
Australia is honoured to count Philippines as a close friend. and from today, a strategic partner. Our friendship is underpinned by trust and respect, as well as a shared vision for the region.
Albanese also launched the Southeast Asian Economic Strategy in Jakarta, which aims to boost trade and investments with regional partners, including the Philippines, by 2040. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Sheena Salim, SMNI News, Australia.
Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. thanked the Australian government for supporting the country's maritime claims in the West Philippine Sea during Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's historic visit to Manila. Jane Teniza has the details.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Malacanang held a joint press statement after signing several bilateral agreements earlier today. In a speech delivered on Friday, September 8, President Marcos thanked the Australian government for its strong support to the Philippines' stance on its territorial claims in the West Philippine Sea and acknowledged Albanese's call to uphold efforts in protecting its territory.
Thanks to you, Mr. Prime Minister, for the strong support that you have made for the Philippines, especially during the past ASEAN conference, where you have made very clear that the claims that are being made upon Philippine maritime territory are not valid and have not been recognized and are not in conjunction or consistent with international law.
Before visiting the Philippines, Albanese and Marcos convened with their fellow Southeast Asian leaders during the Third Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Australia Summit, held in Jakarta, Indonesia on Thursday, September 7. Albanese, for his part, emphasized that Australia and the Philippines face important security issues where both sides hold common views. The Australian official also vowed that his country's position to uphold the international law will remain consistent.
We have a collective responsibility for security, including support for the UN Convention and the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. That's very important. Australia does support, as I said, at the East Asia Summit, the 2016 South China Sea Arbitral Award. That is final and it's binding, and it's important that be upheld going forward.
Meanwhile, both countries agreed to elevate their diplomatic relations through the signing of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership that aims to expand bilateral cooperation in several areas, including the signing of other Memoranda of Understanding, or MOUs. President Marcos described the deal as a significant step that will not only boost relations between Australia and the Philippines, but also strengthen the country's response on issues concerning economy, peace, and security.
This signing of the Joint Declaration on Strategic Partnership signals our mutual commitment to deepening collaboration across a spectrum of areas that are vital to both our countries' growth and prosperity.
Albanese also held the constructive meetings he had with Marcos.
This elevation is an important symbol of the strength of our relationship and our shared commitment to do more together. We discussed strengthening our cooperation on regional and national security. We agreed to formalise an annual Defence Ministers meeting.
The strategic partnership deal covers cooperation in various fields concerning defense and maritime, counterterrorism and law enforcement, deeper collaboration in climate action, education, development, and people-to-people exchanges. Australia is the Philippines' second largest partner in defense and security. It is also the Philippines' 14th largest trading partner in 2022. Canberra also serves as the Southeast Asian country's 11th most significant source of total official development assistance, or ODA, amounting to $180 million as of December last year. Reporting from Sydney, this is Jane Seniza, SMNI News, Australia.
Germany's chancellor said his country needs to accelerate the inflow of skilled workers from outside the European Union, emphasizing that Germany's survival and economic prosperity hinge on the continued influx of foreign workers and that the country cannot thrive without them. Andres Santos tells us more.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called for an increased flow of skilled foreign workers outside the European Union, stating that Germany's economy depends on it. In a speech to lawmakers, Scholz introduced his Germany Pact, a comprehensive nationwide program that aims to boost the country's economy. Scholz told his fellow lawmakers that Germany needs foreign workers, emphasizing that 13 million workers will retire in the next decade, creating a labor shortage. He urged authorities to simplify immigration procedures to ensure that professionals like nurses from Georgia and ID specialists from India can quickly obtain visas and work permits. The Germany Pact includes digitalizing public administration, reducing business bureaucracy, securing clean energy, and expanding housing. In response, opposition leader Friedrich Merz called for measures to make job income more attractive and address illegal immigration as a priority. Germany saw 1.5 million net immigrants in 2022, with 2.7 million arrivals last year, including 1.1 million from Ukraine. The nation currently hosts 13.4 million foreigners, and 24 million of its 83.2 million population have an immigration background. A May poll showed that most Germans support stricter immigration policies, with nearly half wanting fewer refugees. 54% believe that the disadvantages of immigration outweigh the benefits, while only 33% think the opposite. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
World leaders involved in the G20 summit have already arrived in New Delhi, India, but among the top leaders notably absent was Chinese President Xi Jinping, who reportedly skipped the big event and will be represented by Premier Li Qiang. Kai Velen has the details.
As the G20 summit draws near, Xi visited flood-affected villagers of Shaanxi City in northeast China's Heilongjiang province. Xi was seen walking into the fields of Langwangmiao village on Thursday to check how rice plants were affected by the floods. He also checked damaged houses and reconstruction of infrastructures while walking in the village streets. The Chinese president was also seen talking to the villagers to learn the losses of their supply of daily needs. He then encouraged them to bolster their confidence to overcome difficulties and resume normal work and life sooner. The province of Heilongjiang was said to be China's biggest grain producer. CCTV Plus reported that the devastation affected 17 townships, 161 villages, and 23 communities citywide. Some 28,500 households, amounting to 79,000 people, suffered damage, with almost 5,000 homes wrecked, 27,640 hectares of grain crops ruined, including 24,680 hectares that were completely destroyed. Meanwhile, the Chinese government said recovery efforts and reconstruction are in full swing. Kai Velen reporting, SMNI News.
A Ukrainian oligarch who is also the former sponsor of President Zelensky faces charges of embezzling millions by allegedly unlawfully diverting funds from a bank to strengthen his control over the institution. Carlo de la Peña has the details.
Ukrainian oligarch Igor Kolomoisky, known for supporting President Volodymyr Zelensky, is facing serious legal charges after his country's National Anti-Corruption Bureau accused him of embezzling $250 million from Private Bank, a bank he used to control. According to the Anti-Corruption Bureau, Kolomoisky and 5 others allegedly orchestrated an illegal scheme in 2015 to take $250 million from Private Bank. They purportedly pretended to buy the bank's bonds at inflated prices, funneling the money to a company controlled by Kolomoisky. These funds were then used to finance one of Kolomoisky's offshore companies and increase his stake in Private Bank. Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Bureau has not revealed the identities of other suspects involved. This comes after recent allegations that Kolomoisky laundered and moved over $13 million abroad, using his influence over banking institutions he controlled, according to Ukrainian Security Services or SBU. These actions involve the illegal acquisition of assets obtained through criminal means. Kolomoisky was arrested last Saturday, September 2, and a court has ordered him to be detained for 2 months, with a bail set at $13.8 million. His legal team plans to challenge the arrest, and a hearing is scheduled for later this month. Ihor Kolomoisky rose to prominence in Ukraine in 2014 when he served as the governor of the southeastern Dnipropetrovsk region following the Maidan coup. However, his tenure was short-lived, as he was dismissed a year later due to conflicts with then-Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. In 2016, Ukrainian authorities nationalized private bank owned by Kolomoisky, citing extensive fraud and a threat to the country's financial system. Kolomoisky's influence on President Volodymyr Zelensky's rise to power has been scrutinized. Zelensky, a former comedian, had a television show called Servant of the People, hosted by a media holding controlled by Kolomoisky. While the oligarch publicly supported Zelensky's presidential campaign, he had denied any significant personal ties to the current Ukrainian president. However, Kyiv Independent article reported that it was Zelensky's party that started passing laws banning the return of seized banks to their ex-owners and forcing oligarchs to register in a state database. After the start of Russia's so-called special military operation, Kolomoisky reportedly saw his stake in oil refining companies, Ukhrnafta and Ukhrnafta, nationalized by the state, while his passport was allegedly stripped with Zelensky's undisclosed decree. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
In the United States, New York City Mayor Eric Adams revealed that his city is facing a huge financial problem due to immigration. He also said that mass immigration will destroy New York City unless something is done about it. Andrea Santos is back for more news.
And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month.
This video of Mayor Eric Adams immediately went viral online after he revealed that New York City was being overwhelmed by migrants coming from various countries across the world, and that the city is facing a $12 billion budget deficit. More than 10,000 migrants are coming to New York a month, and while most of the newcomers in the past years originated from Central and South America. The most recent ones included Russian speakers coming through Mexico and people from Western Africa.
Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We had a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you asked me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do and they're destroying New York City? It's going to come to your neighborhoods. All of us are going to be impacted by this.
Adams has repeatedly sought the help from fellow Democrat U.S. President Joe Biden and Governor Kathy Hochul, apparently to no avail. The New York City mayor again asked them for more funding to expedite the work permits for migrants so that they could begin working and relieve at least some of the burden on New York City. A New York Times article reported that nearly 60,000 migrants currently occupy beds at the homeless shelters in New York City. A Politico article also reported that New York City spent $1.5 billion last fiscal year on housing and services for migrants, while receiving $140 million from the federal government. Adams' warnings were likely a complete turnabout of his words about immigrants, as he previously said that New York City was a sanctuary for immigrants under his administration. And on April of this year, the New York City Mayor Office announced the Immigrant Heritage Week to celebrate the arrival of 11,000 settlers to Ellis Island, 1907. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
More news when Newsline World returns.
Kabayan! Oo, ikaw. Alam mo ba na you can win lots of prizes when you bring home a guest in the Philippines? The Department of Tourism brings you the Visita Be My Guest program. Joining is easy. 1. Sign up as a sponsor. You can do this via the official BBMG website. All Filipinos of legal age living in the Philippines or abroad can join. 2. Invite your guests. The more you invite, the more chances of winning. And 3. Travel to the Philippines and upload your proof of travel to complete the registration process and earn e-raffle tickets and the BBMG travel passport and privilege card that you can use to get discounts as you travel around our award-winning destinations in the Philippines. Join now and get a chance to win in any of the 3 raffle dates in 2023. So what are you waiting for? Come home and bring your guests to the Philippines. Sign up, invite friends and family, and travel to the world's leading beach and dive destination and the world's leading country destination for tourism, the Philippines. Visita Be My Guest in the Philippines.
Iniibig ko ang Pilipinas.
Ito ang aking lupang sinilangan. Ito ang tahanan ng aking lahi. Ako'y kanyang kinukupkop at tinutulungan.
Upang maging malakas,
Maligaya at kapaki-pakinabang. Bilang ganti,
diringgin ko ang payo ng aking mga magulang.
susundin ko ang mga tuntunin
ng aking pamahalaan.
Tutuparin ko ang tungkulin ng isang mamayang makabayan at masunurin sa batas. Paglilingkuran ko ang aking bayan
Nang walang pag-iimbot.
At ng buong katapatan.
Sisikapin ko na maging isang tunay na Pilipino.
Sa isip, sa salita, at sa gawa.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas kong mahal. Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at sa Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at sa Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at para sa Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas nating mahal.
Para sa Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas nating mahal.
Tuwing Lunes Lunes, Miyerkules at Huwebes, alas 9 ng gabi, usapang politika, usapang mamamayan, usapang pangkalahatan. Samahan niyo po ako, si Peter Serrano, para sa Usapang Makabayan dito sa SMNI News Channel para sa Diyos at sa Pilipinas nating mahal. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Pilipinas muna.
The United States is conducting what it calls a precautionary repositioning of more than 1,000 military personnel stationed in Niger, with most officers primarily based on military installations. Vergil Parba files this report.
The United States is moving some of its troops from Niger's capital Niamey to Agadez area. This comes in the wake of July coup in Niger, where military officers seized government control. Around 1,100 U.S. military personnel are stationed in Niger, primarily on bases, with joint training activities scaled back since the coup. Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh clarified that there is no immediate threat to U.S. personnel in Niger, and this move is a precaution.
So what we're doing right now is the department is repositioning some of our personnel and some of our assets from Airbase 101 in Niamey to Airbase 201 in Agadez. But it's simply precautionary. Our force posture hasn't changed in Niger. Our position remains the same, that we hope that the situation on the ground gets resolved diplomatically, but would just reemphasize that there's no immediate threat to U.S. personnel or violence on the ground.
A small group of personnel will remain at Air Base 101 in Niamey. The Pentagon Press Secretary also noted that some non-essential personnel and contractors have already left the country. Niger has been a key base for the region's French and American anti-militant operations. The U.S. action is unrelated to ongoing talks between Niger and France about withdrawing certain French military elements. French forces have faced calls from Niger to reduce their presence. In July, Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum was overthrown by his own guards and detained by coup leaders, sparking condemnation from the West African bloc ECOWAS, which threatened the use of force to restore civilian rule. Similar military takeovers have occurred in neighboring Burkina Faso and Mali, and the current leaders of these two countries are allies of Niger's junta military. In fact, last August, the Niger military authorized the armies of Burkina Faso and Mali to intervene in the event of aggression. Reporting this has been Vergil Parba, SMNI News.
Due to fear of a nuclear war, Starlink CEO Elon Musk reportedly tried to shut down Ukrainian access to its satellite communications network when their forces were trying to attack the Russian fleet of the Crimea coast in 2022. But is there more to it? And what is the multi-billionaire's response? Let's find out more on Jane Cognita's report.
An excerpt from a biography written by Walter Isaacson, titled Elon Musk, revealed that the multi-billionaire and Starlink CEO was reportedly worried about being dragged into the war and ordered SpaceX engineers to turn off the satellite as the Ukrainian forces were attempting to attack the Russian fleet off the Crimea coast last year. Musk feared that Kyiv's attack would amount to a mini Pearl Harbor, which would lead to Russia resorting to nuclear retaliation. Isaacson wrote that after the satellites were disconnected, the Ukrainian drones lost connectivity and were washed ashore harmlessly. Musk reportedly told the biographer, and quotes, "How am I in this war? Starlink was not meant to be involved in wars. It was so people can watch Netflix and chill and get online for school and do good peaceful things, not drone strikes." End of quote. The biographer also claimed that Ukraine's ex-deputy prime minister Mikhailo Fedorov begged Musk to restore access to the satellites. However, the billionaire denied the request and said that Kyiv's drone attack was going too far and was inviting strategic defeat. Meanwhile, Elon took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to clarify that the Starlinks in question were not activated and that SpaceX did not deactivate anything. Musk also said, and quote, "There was an emergency request from government authorities to activate Starlink all the way to Sevastopol. The obvious intent being to sink most of the Russian fleet at anchor. If I had agreed to the request, then SpaceX would be explicitly complicit in a major act of war and conflict escalation." This revelation gained reaction from two famous senior officials of Russia and Ukraine, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's top aide Mikhailo Podolyak and former Russian President and current Deputy Chair of Russia's Security Council Dmitry Medvedev. Podolyak took to X to lash out at Musk and accused him of being an ignorant with a big ego. Medvedev, on the other hand, took to X to praise Musk for being concerned about a retaliatory nuclear strike from Russia, calling him as the last adequate mind in North America. It can be remembered that Musk donated more than 20,000 terminals of Starlink to Ukraine at the beginning of the conflict in February 2022. But in October of last year, Musk wrote to the Pentagon saying that Starlink could no longer afford to continue funding the service. He also asked the Biden administration to cover the cost. But earlier this year, US and European governments negotiated a deal by paying for another 100,000 Starlink satellite dishes to be sent to Ukraine. Reporting, this has been Jane Conita, SMNI News.
Earlier this week, senior officials of Japan and China exchanged words during the ASEAN Plus 3 summit following Fukushima wastewater release issue. Kent Hashimoto files this report.
Amid growing tensions, Japan and China exchanged words regarding the ban that Beijing is now implementing on all Japanese seafood imports following the release of treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida earlier called on Beijing to take action based on scientific reasoning and called on Chinese Premier Li Qiang to abolish Beijing's import ban on Japanese seafood. In the middle of the meeting of Japan, China and South Korea at the ASEAN Plus 3 summit in Jakarta said it will continue providing information about wastewater discharge. Chinese Premier Li Qiang called on Japan to be responsible for its step and consult its neighboring countries first. According to Li, the disposal of nuclear contaminated water is a great threat to the global marine ecological environment and human health. The summit was the first multilateral gathering attended by both Japanese and Chinese leaders since Japan began to discharge its wastewater. Kishida emphasized that Japan is sure to follow the global community understanding regarding the safe water release. Ijo Nihon kara Hashimoto Kento deshita. SMNI News, Japan.
North Korea reportedly launched its very first tactical nuclear attack submarine and was presided by its leader, Kim Jong-un. Alisa Torres reports.
North Korea has announced that it has launched a nuclear attack submarine after several years of development, something South Korea criticized and stated that it was not operating normally. Kim Jong-un attended the launching ceremony of the said vessel on Wednesday and said it was a good start to building a navy capable of repelling the United States and South Korea. According to Pyongyang State Agency, KCNA, the submarine was designed to launch nuclear weapons from underwater, but it is not clear how many missiles it can carry and fly. Reports say this would strengthen North Korea's nuclear deterrence because it could fly after avoiding a nuclear attack on the ground. Kim meanwhile stated that the submarine will perform its combat mission as one of the core underwater offensive means of the naval force of North Korea. Pyongyang now plans to expand its submarine capabilities in the country and build nuclear-powered vessels in the future. The new submarine is named Hero Kim Kun-ok in honor of a historical figure in North Korea, and analysts first discovered signs that it was under construction in 2016. Reporting, this has been Alisa Torres, SMNI News.
The Crown Prince of Kuwait is scheduled to visit China later this month. Melchizedek Cadiz reports. The United Arab Emirates expressed a willingness to invest millions of dollars to buy carbon credits from Africa amid the global push to reduce carbon emissions. Jonathan Acobo has the details.
Marhaba! The Africa Climate Summit ended in Kenya with leaders urging the global community to urgently reduce greenhouse gas emissions and keep financial promises to fight climate change. An Emirati coalition also promised to buy carbon credits generated in Africa. As Kenya struggles to attract climate finance, the UAE pledged to buy $450 million in carbon credits from the African Carbon Markets Initiative, or ACMI, by 2030. The UAE Carbon Alliance, a grouping of several UAE companies dedicated to advancing the development of a carbon market ecosystem, made the pledge at the opening of the Climate Summit in the East African country this week. Launched in Egypt last year, the African Carbon Markets Initiative aims to boost Africa's carbon credit production from 60 million in 2020 to 300 million by 2030 and 1.5 billion by 2050. Carbon markets are trading systems in which carbon credits are sold and bought. It is a way for companies or individuals to compensate for their greenhouse gas emissions through projects that reduce emissions such as reforestation and shifting to renewable or cleaner energy sources. Each carbon credit is equivalent to preventing the release of 1 ton of carbon dioxide. The Climate Summit took place in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi from September 4 to 8, attended by more than 30 heads of state and nearly 25,000 delegates. The ambitious pledge was part of the UAE's strategic initiative to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Tajubalak Almazimin Tatiti at Karumilbay kana Jotham Kabusmay News Natida Emirates.
The Crown Prince of Kuwait is scheduled to visit China later this month. Melchizedek Cadis reports.
Assalamu alaikum. His Highness the Crown Prince Sheikh Mishal Al Hamad Al Jaber Al Sabah will visit China for the first time and will lead a high-level delegation that includes Foreign Minister, Oil Minister, and Finance Minister. The scheduled trip will take place nearly a year after Chinese President Xi Jinping met with the Crown Prince in the Saudi capital of Riyadh. At that time, Xi praised Kuwait for adhering to the One China principle and supporting Beijing's core interests. The Chinese president also vowed support in safeguarding Kuwait's national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Meanwhile, Sheikh Mishal's upcoming visit to China will include signing vital agreements between the two countries in different fields. China has become Kuwait's largest source of imports and its biggest trading partner, while Kuwait has been China's 7th largest source of crude oil imports. Barakallah fikum jami'an, kan hada Melchizedek Cadis sa Akhbar SMNI, Kuwait.
And before we end, may be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. Every challenge and every path of trials and tests we go through is a path toward our own spiritual experience to maturity. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit smninewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I am Franco Baranda. Thank you for watching Newsline World. And thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Polo Sikibuloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.